Okay, so, you know, we always talk about like living in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this FDA proposal, this thing you sent over,
Yeah.
this is it. I'm telling you. Brain-computer interfaces, BCIs. This is straight up like sci-fi,
Yeah.
but it's becoming reality.
It's wild. And what gets me is it's not just about, the FDA approving a device here, a device there.
Right.
They're trying to build like this whole system for how to even think about this whole category of medical tech. It's like, I don't even know. It's like they're writing the rule book while the game's still being invented.
It's true. And they even say that, right? Like
Yeah.
they admit this is uncharted territory. But the thing, at least for me, that is so crazy is the potential. Right.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
talking about things that have stumped, doctors and scientists for centuries, paralysis, Alzheimer's, things like that.
And that's where this proposal, it gets really interesting because they're saying, okay, how do we even measure if a BCI is the right call for a specific person?
Right.
Because let's be real, brain surgery, it's not something you just jump into.
No.
There's serious risks involved.
Yeah, this benefit impairment factor, this BIF thing.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to create a score, like a personalized risk-benefit score
Right.
for brain surgery, which just seems unbelievably complicated. Like, how do you even begin to measure something like someone's quality of life?
It's a huge challenge, and the proposal, it really dives into that. And they use this example, I think it's like a table in there.
Right.
And that's where it kind of clicked for me. They're comparing someone with like minimal impairment, maybe they want a BCI to I don't know, boost their focus or something, versus someone with severe paralysis who's hoping to just be able to communicate again.
Right.
Those are completely different situations,
Totally.
both in terms of what you could gain, but also the level of risk you might be okay with.
So it's not even just does this BCI work?
Exactly.
Does it work for you based on your situation, your life,
Yeah. And what I thought was interesting is how the FDA, they're looking beyond just that typical thing of oh, BCIs help people walk again.
Right, which is what you always hear, yeah.
Which you always hear. They're looking at things like, what if you could control a prosthetic limb with your mind?
Wow.
What if you could use your mind to use a computer? They're even talking about things like addiction.
Hold on. BCI for addiction.
Yeah.
I got to hear more about that.
Uh,
That sounds amazing, but also terrifying.
It's definitely pushing the boundaries. What they're talking about is can we use a BCI to almost disrupt those addictive pathways in the brain? So imagine a high-tech way to help with the opioid crisis.
Wow.
Now, obviously, that brings up a ton of ethical questions. We're going to have to deal with all that.
Oh, yeah.
But it just shows you how broad the potential here is.
It's like science fiction is bleeding into real life.
It really is.
And they're not talking about decades from now, right? They have examples in here of BCIs with hundred thousands of electrode channels.
It's incredible.
Transmitting information so fast.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, it's like going from dial-up to high-speed internet,
Yeah.
but for your brain.
It really is incredible. But you're right. It's not all, perfect, right?
Right.
We are talking about brain surgery.
Yeah, this isn't like getting your new phone.
Exactly.
What are some of the big things they're worried about?
So one of the big ones is just age, how old you are, how long you're expected to live.
Okay.
Makes sense when you think about it, right?
Okay.
A 30-year-old, maybe they're cool with a little more risk if it means they could get decades more of a good life back.
Right.
But someone who's 80,
Yeah.
something that just makes them more comfortable right now might matter more, even if there's bigger potential downsides.
So the same device, same procedure, could be risky for one person, but totally fine for someone else.
100%. And it's not just age. They talk about your overall health, right?
Right.
Someone with diabetes or heart problems.
Right.
They might have a way tougher time with surgery and recovery.
Oh, so it gets even more complicated.
Way more complicated.
Didn't they have those made-up patients to show this?
Yes.
It was the 30-year-old with the spinal injury.
Yeah.
Then there was the older person with ALS.
Yep. Patient A, patient B, patient C.
Right.
Each one with their own medical history, age, all that. And the FDA is basically saying, look, we got to look at each of these people differently.
Wow.
It shows you how we're not just treating a condition, we're treating a person.
Totally, yeah. But here's what gets me. Even with all that planning, right? What happens after someone gets a BCI? Are we talking brain scans every week for the rest of their life?
Probably not that intense, but yeah, checkups are going to be a big deal. They talk about post-approval studies. It's like PAS, they call it. Think of it like, remember how Pfizer had to keep an eye on that COVID vaccine?
Right, right. Even after it was out there.
Exactly, like making sure it's doing what it should, not causing more problems, all that.
So it's all about getting data from, like, the real world to be extra sure.
Yeah, and get this, they even say maybe we should look at data from similar things we're already using,
Right?
like deep brain stimulators.
Right.
The idea being, if we can learn from what happened with those, maybe we can catch any BCI problems before they get bad.
See, that's what makes me nervous, though, because I remember they looked at that FDA database, that MIUEE database, right? The one with all the device problems. And they found a bunch of reports about those deep brain stimulators needing, like, more surgery later on.
Yeah.
It's not exactly, like, reassuring. Kind of makes you wonder, right? If something like a deep brain stimulator, which has been around, for a while,
Yeah.
if that can have problems, what are we going to find with BCIs as they get, like, even more complicated?
That's a really good question, and it seems like that's kind of what the FDA is trying to get ahead of. And one thing I did think was interesting was that they're not just talking about, lab tests and clinical trials.
Right.
They keep saying voice of the customer. They want to know how people are actually using these things, what their experience is like in the real world.
So it's not just, like, the scientists and the regulators, like, making all the decisions.
Exactly.
They want to hear from the people who are actually going to be, living with these devices, which I got to say is nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it gets even, like, I don't even know, a little more intense. They bring up this whole thing about export controls.
Wait, what? Like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, restricting who has access to this technology?
It's in the proposal.
Why would they even go there?
It kind of sent chills down my spine a little bit reading that, because it means they're already thinking about, like, what if BCIs get so good that they could be misused?
Right. It's like, it's not that far of a jump, really, if you think about it, to go from, like, oh, this helps people, to, like, oh, we can enhance soldiers.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even scarier, like controlling people's minds, stuff like that.
It gets really philosophical really fast.
Yeah, this is way beyond just, like, medical devices at that point.
100%. We're talking about changing, like, what it even means to be human, almost.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they're bringing it up now, because it's like, we got to have these conversations while it's still early.
This deep dive took a turn. So, okay, to bring it all home, right, for our listener who sent this in, it seems like the message here is something amazing is happening with BCIs.
Yeah.
Like, this could really, truly, like, help people in ways we couldn't even imagine. But there's risks.
Big one.
Both for, like, people individually, but then for, like, society as a whole. And how we handle this, like how we choose to, regulate it, how we choose to use this, it's going to shape the future in ways we probably can't even imagine yet.
Well said. If there's one thing I want our listener to walk away with, it's that, as we do this, as we move forward with BCIs, the most important voice in the room has to be the person whose brain is actually on the line.
Right.
Like their experience, what they want, their fears, that's got to be what guides us as we, as we go into this whole new world.
Because in the end, it's not about the tech, it's about the people, right? And it's about the future that we're, all building together. And on that note, my friend, that is a wrap on another deep dive.